Hey guys and girls, Bored now back with you, and on this video I will be reviewing the first episode of BBC One's or BBC's adaptation of Noughts and Crosses. So this is the like young adult teen sci-fi romance, if you like, sort of an alternative reality. And this is one of the most anticipated new shows of 2020. It comes from Malorie Blackman's 2001 young adult novel, which very highly praised. I've never read it, but it's certainly one which gets a lot of rave reviews and a lot of just real praise, critical praise. And yeah, this has been much talked about, this version, this small screen version of it. Before I get into the review, I would just like to thank everyone who supported the channel and point out that this is actually my 200th video. So yeah, I feel quite proud to have gotten to this far. And thanks for all the support, thanks for helping to make this happen. So yes, this is a brand new TV review. There's six episodes of these, and all 6 are up now on the BBC iPlayer. So if you wish to binge this rather than just watch one a week, then they're all up there for you to do just that. But if not, it's on once a week on BBC One. It's on Thursdays at 9 o'clock if you just want to watch it one a week, if that suits you better. But just to sum up what Noughts and Crosses is, you have, it's set in an alternative reality. As I said, it's set in it's called Albion, London, in the show, in the story. So you have basically Britain under like African rule, and as a result the city has been divided into like these different groups. So the Noughts and the Crosses of the title. So the Noughts are like the poor working class white characters, as is the version here. So it's flipping around the power dynamic of races is in this country. And they are often sneered and looked down upon, not just because of them being the poorer class, but also that kind of stereotype of them being like kind of scum and thugs and all that. And there's a particular word in the show which is used, blacker, as a way to like sneer them. And on the other hand, you have the Crosses, which are basically the African people, the ruling classes, and they have all the power, and we see the different kind of power dynamics. And we get this character of Callum, played by Jack Rowling, who people might know from Peaky Blinders, and he is really conflicted at the start of the story because his mother is basically like she works for the Home Secretary, who obviously is part of the ruling class, and as a result there's tensions in the family because Jack's brother is very anti the government, very anti the ruling class, and wants to rebel, and is very angry and looking for a way to rebel. So is against obviously the mother working for the Home Secretary, but at the same time the mother obviously has to try and make a living, make ends meet, provide for the family. But because she has this link, then that sort of brings the two worlds together with Callum who is conflicted because he is applying, or he has applied to be in this academy where soldiers are trained, but because in this universe the crosses have all the power, and it's like the people of color, if you like, they rule. So the tradition is that normally you are a cross if you are a soldier. They're the ones who get recruited, not the Noughts. So you have this very much this idea of kind of biased and things being sneered in favour of the ruling classes. But Callum applies to be in this academy, and his brother takes against this because he sees this as Callum portraying the battle, if you like, and sort of portraying like their side and going with the other side. But Callum's way of thinking is that he wants to change things from the inside, so he wants to get accepted to the academy and to change minds, to do it that way. He sees it as a more productive way to fight the battle. So that's definitely a big theme of the show, or of this first episode. How do you change things without compromising your backgrounds, your roots? At the start of the first episode, we see a bunch of Noughts, in Callum and his friends, his brother, getting together at like a bike rally, and it's kind of the last night before Callum is to go off for this like audition, if you like, for this academy. But the police charge in and break up their sort of get together, and they just use excessive force, and they basically beat a lot of them up, and this includes their friends, like a friend of the brother who is severely injured and almost fatally killed, is put in hospital. So that obviously stokes the flames even more, and we get the perspective from the government, and then the Prime Minister, for example, being very nervous about really stoking the flames, and she's kind of wanting to be cautious and to break down segregation. Well, not break it down, but not fuel things any further. Whereas you've got the Joseph Peters character, who's one of the head officials for the government, who is very kind of cutting that mold of looking down at the Noughts, and he wants extra police presence, even though that'll just stir things up even more. So, but then you obviously get this relationship between Sophia, who's like the sister of the Home Secretary. I think she is. She's certainly related. So she has this position of privilege. And as it turns out, she knew Callum. They grew up together because of Callum's mother working for the Home Secretary. So they knew each other as kids, and they come back together, and there's this spark, but obviously there's all these tensions and conflict. And, we sort of see that they both have, the potential for aggression towards them because of them being seen together. So that's the basic setup. And I thought it was a really, really good first episode. I think it's very strong because, first of all, you have this natural chemistry between the two leads. As I said, Jack Rowland plays Callum. You've got Masalil Baduza. I'll go with that. That's probably wrong, so I'm sorry, but she's very good as well as Sophia, and I really like their chemistry. Just like the beautiful intimacy of the relationship, and I think obviously the fact that there's so many complications and that they're so idealistic, and both of them kind of can't fathom this sort of bigotry and this kind of negative attitude towards, and just this division. I think it does kind of show how a lot of times this is a generation thing, and because with Callum's parents, for example, you've got Ian Hart, Helen Baxendale playing the parents, two really good actors again. But I think with them, it's not so much then they are in favour of like segregation, or they actually believe then they are like inferior to the crosses. It's just this idea of this is reality. This is, it's a lot harder to rock the boat. It's a lot easier and maybe safer in many ways just to turn a blind eye to just get your head down and get on with working. And of course, this story deals with those complications. It deals with the fact then when you don't have any of the power, when you are restricted, it's not easy, and it can be potentially dangerous to kind of stand up against the people with all the power. And obviously it shows that the parents have to think about their children and the future. But I do like that then the blossoming romance between Callum and Sophia is almost based on this wide open eyed like idealism. And I think one thing I really like about their scenes together in this first episode is the way they're just sort of punctured by these breaks in like their sort of their minds, if you like. So you get like these kind of scenes where they're kind of dreaming and they're kind of drawn towards each other and just almost fantasizing about a different sort of a world. But then it's temporary, like, and it's sort of broken by reality, and that cuts. So it's this classic sort of sci-fi fantasy type of idea. But I do like really then it is the heart and center of this story. I like the fact then with all these like political ideas, with all this kind of alternative sci-fi type world, I do like then actually this relationship kind of really grounds it, and the fact that it can actually work. You can have this compelling romance, which is kind of the heart of this story. And so the scene when they first meet, so Callum is persuaded by his mother to help her cater at the party of like the Home Secretary, and this again adds to the sort of tension at home with his brother. And so the first scene when he's at the party, like being a waiter, and he's just lays eyes on sofa for the first time, Sophia, and it's like at this point he hasn't realised then he knows her, because it's been years since they've seen each other, and he's just drawn to her, and like the frame of the scene just freezes, and it's just like a regular guy being attracted to like this really beautiful girl, but it's just this regular teenage thing of being just swept up in like this girl, this beautiful young girl. How charming she comes across when he sees her from the other side of the garden they're in. Um, and it's just this beautiful shots of their eye lines sort of kind of tentatively meeting, and this drama just gets inside their head so brilliantly, but then it's sort of cut into by reality, and he like snaps out of it. And then like a few minutes later, there's a scene when they first talk in the bathroom, because he's kind of hurt himself, so she kind of sees to his like wounds, and and that's when they realize, oh my god, they know each other, because they grew up, but they haven't seen each other since they were not like 9 or 10. And just in that scene you get this really quiet intimacy, which then gets cut into by Sophia as a boyfriend who's like a soldier, and he's really kind of heavy-handed. But yeah, it's just this effective kind of way of getting inside their heads, but then showing how reality kind of like shoehorns its way back in and snaps them out of it, and they're just faced with this ridiculously limited world. They're both like limited, because obviously she doesn't feel the way that the rest of like her family and that seem to feel. But what's interesting is a scene quite late in the episode, because Sophia starts hearing about Callum's friend in the hospital, and we see how basically the government has given this cover story that the police were just defending themselves, whereas they were the aggressors, in fact. And Sophia starts to question this, because Callum tells her later on, well, they lied basically. So she starts doing her own like research, investigation, and starts pushing this with her professor. She asks him, and again we see these divisions in like education and stuff, but also this idea of how we're kind of taught, and how if you're used to information and one side of the story, and just if you're taught this at school and in education, and you're only given set information, if you're not taught to think outside of this box and this information, and if you're just brought up to see a marginalised group as a negative thing, as like a danger, aggression, then you're not really going to question it. You're just going to go along with the stereotype. So when she starts asking like her tutor at the university about it, and he just gives out these kind of quite random sneers, about Callum, and about, well, not about Callum, but about the Noughts, then it's just gonna be we just see this example of like bigotry. But Sophia goes to the hospital, and we see she actually uses like the power she has for good, because she gets, I think the character's name was Jack, but the like the youth who was injured. So she uses her powers to her position essentially to get his family in to see him. So this is another example of the segregation, where basically the government have got guards like guarding his room, and the family haven't been allowed to get in to see him. So Sophia pulls some strings and they get him to see him. But then the interesting scene is when Callum and Sophia are seen together, and they're seen by a group of Noughts who sort of flip things around, saying, "How can you be seen with like a cross?" And so they get really aggressive, and they shove her out the way, and they actually attack Callum physically. And she, in a moment, just snaps. She just calls them blankers, which is obviously like the racist sort of word in this universe. And it just breaks things down. It sort of just destroys Callum, because he just sees this bigotry coming from her, the one person on the other side who he thought was different. And it really shocks her. It just comes out of nowhere, because up to this point in the episode she has shown no signs of this sort of bigotry. But she finds Callum later, she goes to his house, calls him when he's in his room, and she apologises, and she says, I didn't even realise I had that inside me, but I do. It's how I've been brought up. But she apologises and says, she's going to make things right. And they just talk honestly. It's another really beautifully played scene about the past. And there's this great line from Callum actually where he says, I've never really thought about the future, because when you have very little options, then you don't really think about it, because you don't have much of a choice. And she supports him in going to the academy, because she says, well, yeah, just do the bit you can do, because he's despondent. He thinks it's not going to do much good. He can only do so much. So she just keeps it simple and says, well, at least do that much then. Because actually he is accepted into the academy, and we see like a group of them being put through their paces in like this boot camp style scene. And when Callum's talking to like the sergeant, Callum has the line where he says, well, it's my work to make you see things differently about Noughts. So that's when it becomes clear then that's Callum's plan, to change things from the inside. And so the sergeant was obviously impressed with him, and he begrudgingly gives him an opportunity. But even with this opportunity, which he starts like the next week or something, it's obviously going to be extra hard for Callum. They're going to make it harder for someone from the other side, from the group. So very interesting situation. Another interesting like subplot, if you like, is that we have this kind of extremist character who is like running this like fringe group, this like rebellion against the government and the whole system. and he's seems this really charismatic figure who holds like these rallies, these meetings, and Callum's brother goes to like these meetings and is drawn in, and it's this outlet for him really, because he feels really isolated at home and thinks that Callum is like portraying their side, and is kind of upset with the family in general, with the mother working for the Home Secretary. So he starts getting close to the leader, and we see a scene with Callum like meeting the leader in a pub, and it just seems like, I think the way these scenes play out with him is then I think you can tell then there is something murky about him. I think you can tell then he has ulterior motives outside of just being this force trying to change things. And I think it's revealed as we go along that he just wants power, he just wants to stir things up. It's almost like, in the same way as the government are like manipulating things, I think in his own way he's doing the same. He just likes to divide the two groups and just likes to play with that and just enjoys the power of it. So we see him getting closer to Callum's brother, and towards the end he goes to the hospital to visit the friend, and he's there with the friend and with Callum's brother who's visiting him as well. And the friend, as I said, I think Jack was his name. He's in critical condition. He's in some sort of a coma. And it's this real shocking scene where Callum's brother goes to get him a drink, and then he just kills the friend. He kills Jack. He like chokes him, smothers him, and that's the reveal. And it's, although I could see there was going to be something, as I said, murky about the character, I didn't expect something like that. And then he acts all innocent. He calls like the nurse, so he's gonna obviously just pretend then he naturally died, rather than it was him. And I think it certainly looks like this is going to be a way for him to stir things up even more. He can now use the death of this young guy to further stir things up, to like, but to gain even more power. It's like a catalyst for him to have like this outlet and to manipulate things even further. So that's looking interesting as well. But yeah, I thought it was a really good first episode. Obviously I've not read the book, so I can't comment on this, but I was really taken by Callum and Sophia's relationship, and the politics was very interesting. I think they're very relevant to today. It was nicely directed. But I think what's great about it mostly is that the characters seem to be really well written. They seem really interesting. And I think that is so key to these things always. Then you just get immersed in the characters and their conflicts. And it has this energy and power to it, but also I think there is like a subtlety and a lightness of touch. I think it is quite well paced, and it does have a subtle touch. It's not just like full blazes. I think obviously the angst and the emotion of it is going to be key to like their relationship and to like the character's frustration. But yeah, good writing and just having a sense of pacing, I think is really crucial. But good first episode. So I think I'm gonna stick with this definitely. I'll definitely be there's only 6 episodes, so I mean, unless it takes a big fall, then I'll definitely be doing all 6. But that's my review of the pilot episode, if you like, or episode 1 of Noughts and Crosses. I'm assuming there's probably only going to be one season because of the fact it's based on this novel, but who knows with these things? There could be legs to do more, but we'll see. But yeah, I like episode 1. So let me know what you thought of episode 1 of Noughts and Crosses, I should say, in the comments below. Just to say, I'm getting a bit behind on Picard, the Star Trek show. I need to catch up with that. I've got a couple of episodes to catch up with, so I will do that in the coming days, and I'll be back with more Noughts and Crosses soon. So thanks for listening, and I'll see you guys again soon. Goodbye.